Are you struggling with time for pleasure? Are you feeling disconnected from your sensitivity and you just don't like how you look? Well, this episode is for you. I'm Candia Raquel, your host, and you are at the Sensual Sessions Podcast, the place to explore sensing pleasure through your senses and moving in a way that it's free from inhibition and full of self expression. Make sure to subscribe to get these episodes delivered weekly on your inbox. Right on my website, my name, candiaraquel.com, which is www.candiaraquel.com. And today we have a very special guest. This is Dr. Hillel Braude. He's from Israel. He's a Feldenkrais Method Practitioner, and he's a wizard of cognitive science, embodiment, movement, learning, teaching. Welcome, Hillel. I am very honored to have you here.
Thank you so much, Candia. I'm really delighted to be here. And I must say that's the first time that anyone has called me a wizard of anything. But it probably feels right in a way.
Yeah, yeah, sometimes we are good at seeing the attributes of other people, but even though we may be very good at self-awareness, we often don't see or we don't feel some, especially the great things about us. And when we think about us, we tend to see ourselves like in a two-dimensional picture reflected from the mirror or reflected from what other people say about us or what we think the other people think about us, which is not real. And I feel that this back and forth,
Yes.
it's like walling off from the sensitivity of ourselves. So I am curious to know, like, when did you discover your self-image? Like the sense of yourself, like, oh my
Uh,
God, I am a body, I am 3D, I have flesh, and it feels
yes.
good.
Wow. Thank you for that great question. I just want to say, since you invited me to speak with you on the podcast, I confess I hadn't known about Sensuality Sessions podcast, but since then I've been listening a lot. So in the last like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, so I feel like I kind of like I've met you before in a way. Um, and I've just been wondering, well, how on earth am I going to answer your deep, great questions? So I hope I do okay with this. But I've been doing somatic work for something like 30 years, you
30,
know, 30,
30, wow.
in that sense I am a kind of a bit of a wizard, even though I don't have a long beard. But I kind of feel that I discovered somatic work before it became the thing.
Yeah,
But it's taken me that long to perhaps to wear it in my flesh in a sense.
yes.
Um, and so a couple of things as a lot of people you've interviewed who somatic practitioners who describe how we weren't always like this, or I certainly wasn't like this, and was always very awkward in my body, I would say, from my childhood. And by the way, I live in Israel, but I actually grew up in South Africa. So
Wow.
my early founding narrative self is deeply South African. Um, and growing up in apartheid South Africa, with surrounded by Christian national education, and so um, the body wasn't something that was open in a sense, or and 30 years ago I stumbled into my embodied self, in a way, and a number of years later I was studying Feldenkrais. Did my formative Feldenkrais training in New York, but I was living in Montreal, and I was doing a kind of a extra training with Ivan Joly, who's a well-known
Wow, with the
Quebec practitioner, the
fantastic.
Ivan Joly. And I remember him saying to me at some point, he said, you really are in your skeleton. And I was like, wow, kind of, that's the first time that anyone ever said that to me. So I think that was a kind of a self-awareness at that moment, was like a certain homecoming of sorts after, and that would have been something like 10 years ago.
Wow.
Um,
You know, I even have the goosebumps because I am very touched by the wording of of your process. Like you said, like I hadn't always been like this. I start to work
mhm,
in the flesh, like the image and the sense of myself after I got in touch with this work. And then it started to make sense. Like growing up in South Africa, being white and privileged as
yes,
I am in a way, being Mexican, but an
yes,
immigrant Mexican, privileged, upper
hmm,
middle class, etc., and having the
hmm, hmm,
contrast, and also being grown up in a very Catholic background, where here in Mexico, like we are very hedonistic, we like colors and pleasure.
hmm,
There's double morals and the food is delicious, but
yeah,
we all know that pleasure is bad, and that if you indulge in that, that would mean that you are a sinner, and if you're a sinner, you're going to hell, not to heaven, nor the,
yes,
like you're going straight to hell. But if you pay money, then you can
right,
be
yes,
indulged and forgiven.
yes,
So it's like,
yes,
what? And even though I was like raised in a very liberal and academic way and
hmm,
respectful way, still that atmosphere influenced my embodiment, and I can relate to you in that way, and how it takes time to do what you said, this homecoming of sorts, of
for sure,
finally arriving in your body,
hmm, yes,
and then receiving that compliment from the Ivan Jolie that, oh, you are really in your skeleton. And it's like, oh my, that's, to me, that's a compliment, because it's like,
yes,
skeleton, you know, the skeleton is in a way what we are beyond what happened to us, because
right,
it's kind of solid, it's rooted and aligned with gravity. Also,
yes,
when we have bad posture, like it comes
yes,
from our skeleton. But
yes,
I like this idea of being able to come home to the self
hmm,
regardless, almost as if
yes,
the flesh was a territory that is always welcoming, waiting for you,
yes,
w- waiting for you to finally come with
right,
open arms. Like, yes,
yes,
we are like going everywhere on the outside, studying, learning, but home is here.
for sure, for sure. And so many things to say really, but the skeleton is also our history and our inherited history. So to go into this theme of time, um, the skeleton is really important. And also in terms of the flesh, in terms of the unconscious. So more and more my work is going into the unconscious and going into preconceptual experience and a kind of a deep therapeutic process, but going in terms of like a phenomenological study of consciousness rather than like kind of a psychotherapeutic method, somatic psychotherapy. But just to say that. And
Yeah, the unconscious. I am very curious about that because, well, what I've heard about the unconscious is that it's like most of our existence.
Hmm. Yes,
And like, for example, the heartbeat, the organization of our endocrine system, the replenishing of our cells, but also our
right.
cognitive processes, including those of self-identity and awareness, and sometimes
Yes,
unconscious expresses in very interesting ways as dreams or as coincidences. For example, that I don't know, your grandfather was born on a certain date, and then you get married on that same date. And like, if you see the family tree, there are
right,
even like
right.
scary things that, oh, the unconscious is doing their thing.
Yes,
Or, for example,
yes.
that my grandmother's name was Dulce, and my cousin's name is Dulce as well. I am
Hmm.
Candia, but my mother wanted
Uh-huh.
to be
Right.
radical, and Candia, Dulce means sweet in
Sweet,
Spanish,
yes.
and Candia,
That's a sweet one.
according to it's, yeah, like my name, and
Hmm.
it's like the ancient name of Crete, a Greek island, but
Uh-huh.
but it's very close, Candia, from candy in English, which means
Yes,
sweet, which is the same thing. So it's like,
yes,
oh no, or for example, that the son has the same name than the father, than the grandfather, like the first of its lineage. So
yes.
yeah, the unconscious expresses, well, what I barely know, it's not my field. It expresses through actions, especially unconscious actions, and
Yes.
it works with symbols. But then what I am totally flabbergasted in this moment is, how does the unconscious operates in the flesh? Like, how
Does the
do
unconscious operate in the flesh? So, also when we're thinking of the unconscious, I mean, what immediately I think also the direction you're talking about is in terms of like kind of Freudian unconscious and Jungian unconscious
yeah.
and like kind of and in a sense, the unconscious is, in a more simplistic way, is simply referring to the kind of automatic activity without our conscious control in a more kind of cognitive neuroscience way. So I think you could unpack it in either of those two directions and go in very different places. But so I think I'm probably more working with the latter in terms of kind
Okay.
of these automatic uh, patterns ingrained or reflex or automatic function in terms of the body. And we didn't mention, but I've developed this process called neurosomatic variations, which I think you're familiar with in terms of the things I've written about it. But it is a top-down, bottom-up approach. So where it is both um, looking at the explicit cognitive processes, but also in terms of the bottom-up processes in terms of the body. And that is something which is sort of, I think, somewhat distinctive in terms of my approach as perhaps a lot of other somatic approaches, which might have less of this top-down, bottom-up interaction. So both are important. And obviously I'm drawing a lot in terms of my training, in terms of Feldenkrais. And Feldenkrais himself, the first book he wrote on the autosuggestion, and right from the beginning there's this insight in terms of the relationship between the mind and the body and the top-down, bottom-up approaches. Um,
Automatic functions of the body. So, like, Do we want to become conscious of the unconscious, or is it completely idle and pretentious?
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with Feldenkrais's the translation of his book, Thinking and Doing, which
Yes,
as I've
very
been
early.
I've been told by a friend colleague of mine, Eva Laser, that it should actually be thought and doing, I think, from the original Hebrew. But it's basically a translation of Feldenkrais's introduction to the thought of Coué and
Yes,
his
really correct.
insight, yeah, right, the French popular uh, psychotherapist at the time, but this insight that the conscious mind can direct the unconscious is really is perhaps Feldenkrais's key insight that drove his whole work, and and that's very different to the psychoanalytic sense of, well, let's try and open up the unconscious and then find some kind of healing or resolution through bringing the unconscious to conscious. It's more about keeping the unconscious unconscious, but directing, giving our power of suggestion, of intentionality, so that we can use the energy and the force of our unconscious to to direct it in a more conscious way.
I am loving this because it's more deliberate rather than excavating for the gold in the subconscious.
Yes.
It's certainly there's a lot there, but I am loving the the idea of Moshe Feldenkrais of not wasting time with even with the weaknesses. Like he was
Yes.
focused on no, like I have an example. I have a very bad injury. I have a muscle detached from my spine. It's a structural damage that will never heal. And I was
Okay.
always trying to fix it, thinking about compensating, etc.
Right.
Until a great colleague that he's a Feldenkrais Method practitioner like you, he told me like drop it, like
Hmm.
don't waste your time trying to fix what it's broken. Instead,
Yes.
rely in your strengths to keep
Yes.
on with your life and to carry that part
Yes.
of you that was lying. Like don't stop and try to fix the unfixable.
Yes.
No, keep on with your life and bring your weakness, your fragility, even your vulnerability
Yes. Yes.
with you. And it was very empowering, and also like with
Hmm.
it, it was in a kind of way tender. Like don't try to force recovery of
Right.
what is broken, and also like the maturity of accept reality as
Exactly.
it is, and like a warrior spirit, like
Yes.
Moshe was a survivor since a very early age. You see his life
Hmm.
history, and it's like wow. And it's
Yes.
like keep going, and also
Right.
give some credit, give some credit to the real strength, because
Yes.
being healthy doesn't mean to never get
Hmm.
sick, rather than being able
Yes.
to recover from from
Right.
illness. And I really love what you're saying on being okay with letting the unconscious stay unconscious
Yes.
and use the intention and the direction of your aim, of your moving,
Hmm.
of your yeah, of
Yes.
your action, and and do it in a way that it's supported by all the resources in you,
Yes.
including all
That's right.
your unconscious resources. So Yeah, it feels good. That's what I wanted to say.
So another way of thinking this is in terms of the Gestalt image of body and ground. So this is can take us in a way into the discussion around the body image, in a sense, but we can move between what is foreground and background, so that at some moments what is implicit, what is in the background, can move into the foreground and become conscious. And similarly, what is explicit and conscious can also move into the background, be implicit, and is always there, but is not part of our immediate immediate awareness. So that's another way of thinking about this. That, and in terms of the body image, so um, in my latest NSV work, we were playing with this idea of the body from a philosophical literature, of the body image as some kind of cognitive conceptual awareness of the body, like you were describing in the beginning in relation to the mirror image, or other people's judgments or things like that, or my own judgment, and the body schema as from the realm of the unconscious, the implicit, the preconceptual, and these two dynamic interrelation between the two. And so at some moment, what is preconceptual could become part of my cognitive awareness, but it could also equally recede. So it's a dance between these two structures in a
Yes,
way.
and I am loving the understanding of this ability that we have to to bring the background to the foreground of our awareness, and at the same time bring what is at the front of our awareness, like, I don't know, like
Yes,
the trees outside my
yes,
window,
yes,
and
yes.
let them rest on the background. Like, okay, we don't have to hold on to all the knowledge that we have consciously.
No,
We can rest and trust that
yes.
it can rest on the background supporting us. And in the same way, or well, I don't know, in the same way, but
Mm,
I am imagining, like, okay, we have this projected image. For example,
yes,
we are recording for Spotify and the audio, but also for YouTube. So I
yes.
made sure to have my eyeliner, red lips,
Yes.
because
Uh-huh.
first off, I am looking at myself at the reflection of Zoom, so it's better that I like
Yes.
how I look, because otherwise
Yes.
I'm gonna start thinking stupid things. So, but
Yes.
still, I am feeling like a kind of relief and calm, and also confidence, like vanity confidence,
Mm-hmm.
in like, okay, I am feeling good with how I look physically,
Mm-hmm.
like in the screen of YouTube and whatnot.
Yes.
So I am letting that projection of myself rest in the background, and I
Right.
am feeling good. Well, now that that is covered, that I am not looking like a witch, I am feeling like more available to get in touch with the
Yes.
sensitive image of myself with it, which is also called the body schema, which
Yes.
has to do with our fleshly felt sense of self.
Yes.
And then I am fantasizing that I can feel my skeleton. I don't know if I can feel it, but I am imagining that I feel the skeleton in my hands. And yeah, I don't know if that's what you meant by the foreground and background and the body schema and the projected image.
Well, it's related for sure. For sure. And I was listening to on the way from work today to one of your podcasts talking about touch, and you were saying how um you have this fear that we losing our sense of touch, or with our kind of digital world. Um, but there's also the sense of the with Instagram and mainly and TikTok, and that it's how it's um affecting our sense of aesthetic. So people having plastic surgery so that they can look good on Instagram, and what about one's internal sense of body schema, and I think that's really important to not to lose contact with that inner sense. And but obviously once in that it is related. If you're feeling good on the screen, then you'll be able to express yourself more freely and etc. But ultimately the gold is in the internal interoceptive sensation.
Yes, yes,
Um,
yes. The gold is in the interoceptive sensation. And I discovered the gold is in the interoceptive sensation early on when I was a teenager and I went
yes.
to all the rave parties that lasted until 11 a.m. of the next day.
Yes.
And of course, in the beginning, when I arrived to the party or the concert or the whatever, I
Hmm.
was always scanning for the most handsome guys or even the prettiest girls to compare
Hmm.
myself with them and then be
Hmm.
jealous or admire them or feeling
Hmm.
superior or whatever. Vanity things. And that always lasted for maybe 30 minutes.
Hmm.
Because after like 8 hours of being in the same space with more people that you more or less locate like, okay, this guy
Yes.
and that lady and etc. And after some time of just watching people and seeing who's more interesting for me,
Hmm.
at the end, the most interesting people were not the people that I noticed first because of their appearance
Yes.
and looks. The ones that caught my eye, like when I got tired dancing
Hmm.
and I just
Hmm.
leaned back and chill, the people that I was like mesmerized by, admiring,
Hmm. Hmm.
were the ones that were the best dancers. And the best
Hmm.
dancers were not like, oh yeah, ballet or whatever, or
Hmm.
gym super
Hmm.
fit guy, but the ones that were enjoying themselves the most.
Yes.
And I also noticed that, especially the guys around,
Hmm.
were focused on the girl that was enjoying herself the most,
Hmm.
regardless of her body. Like she could be like super skinny, which
Right.
sometimes men are not very attractive to super skinny women, or super fat and like
Hmm.
whatever. But it's like
Yes.
almost as if the pleasure that you get in your flesh from simply being you is what
Yes.
makes you
Right.
attractive,
Right.
magnetic, and like how
Right.
interesting you are to yourself is how interesting you are to the other people.
Jealous.
And
Yes.
I believe
Yes.
that that is what we call self-confidence. And
Hmm.
there are Hollywood actors, or well, this French actor Gerard Depardieu, that has
Hmm.
a huge nose. I am from the 80s. I don't know if he's known,
Sure. 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 Sure.
but like there is people that they feel so good in their skin, and it's like,
Yes.
oh, that guy doesn't have a reason to feel he's handsome, and
Yes.
still he's like he has some juiciness or something about. And I feel that it
Hmm.
has to do with the preconceptual
A
sensuality
hundred. A
of
hundred
the
percent. Understand. Weren't you talking about Sophia Loren that her husband advised her to have a nose operation? Didn't you? Wasn't that in your podcast also?
Sophia
Uh,
Loren. Sophia Loren, she was advised.
I-
It was her husband.
yes.
They
Yes.
were dating, and
Hmm.
her husband was a huge film director and producer,
Hmm. Hmm.
and he asked her to cut her nose. That's how she did.
Yeah.
Like he asked me to cut my nose, and I said no. And if if that is gonna cost me not being a movie star, then so be it.
Right.
I am not gonna be a movie star if I have to cut my nose. And it's like,
Right.
how could you ask Sophia Loren to change
Uh-huh. Right.
a
Anything.
gram of her existence? She
Right.
has always been, she's a great example. She's like 85 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if she came into the restaurant, I am not gay, but still, if Sophia Loren, 85 years old,
Yeah. Right.
came to the restaurant dressed as she
Yes.
usually dressed with her huge cleavage, even though she's a grandma, and she's very
Uh-huh.
tall and like her, I would be
Uh-huh.
drooling, like, oh my God, like
Right.
it's a certain juiciness
Yes.
of being. So
And
yeah,
yeah, and it is this preconceptual being able to be in touch with one's preconceptual schema or sense of self before it gets um before it gets modeled by our cognitive conceptions, by our kind of judgmental structures and things like that.
yes,
And and that's what's so amazing with this. I do these NSV groups, and it's just incredible to see the flowering of people's responses through the discussion, through the talking about these ideas, and then experiencing them actually in the flesh, and then sharing it in a small group of people who are all interested, and the things that people share are just always mind-blowing. They're so unpredictable. I have no idea what anyone is going to say. And it is juicy, and it's just so rich. It drives me from like week to week, knowing, okay, tomorrow I've got my next session. And at the last session, one of the participants said, thank you, something. It's like this process is giving and receiving. We're all giving and receiving. So it's not like I have the knowledge and I'm going to tell you. It's everyone is eliciting things that is just astounding.
yes,
Yeah.
and that's the gold, like
Hmm.
being in touch with the preconceptual schema of you, like feeling yourself before feeling how is it to be yourself. And I mean feeling not just emotionally,
Hmm.
but sensibly, fleshly, juicy,
Yes.
like having a sense, a felt sense of yourself, of who you are before you begin to think rationally and
Right.
conceptually
Yes.
about who you are. Because, for example, all that I have said just like 5 minutes ago about my eyeliner and my red
Hmm.
lipstick and my fear of
Hmm.
looking like a witch on YouTube
Hmm.
and having my nails done and etc. Though all of that are rational thoughts
Yes.
of my projected image that come curated by my fears, my
Yes.
judgments, and my cultural identity. Like, yeah, I have
Right.
long hair because, yes, I am a woman and I wear makeup. I could be gay and queer, but that would have another cultural
Hmm.
pressure. But as I am a woman and I am seen as that in the place that I am raised, then like the conceptual image of me comes through a certain filter, and
Hmm.
that's like a facade. Well, for me it's a
Hmm.
favorite, but at the end it's a facade that, for example,
Hmm.
dancing in a party, you can only hold and sustain that projected image
Hmm.
so long, because
Yeah.
you begin to be dehydrated when
Hmm.
you're starting to get blisters in your toes because of the high heels on the party.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, like this facade is gonna get blurry, and then
Yeah.
a lot of things can come out. The thing is that I feel that most of the times this projected image is very distorted, negatively
Mm-hmm.
distorted, and our preconceptual body schema image of
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
sense is completely asleep,
Mm-hmm.
anesthetized, numb, and
Sure.
the place where it's more scarily so, I believe, it's in a certain piece of furniture that doesn't allow for much lying, that is the
Mm-hmm.
bed. Like when you're naked
Mm-hmm.
with your beloved and the
Mm-hmm.
lights are on and
Mm-hmm.
you take it slow and you are like yeah, it there's nowhere to hide, and
Right.
then we want to hide from ourselves, and I believe
Mm.
we have like an internal fear
Yeah.
of being seen as we are, even
Yes.
though we are beautiful, but we are afraid of being
Mm-hmm.
seen as we see ourselves
Right.
in a distorted way. So I am very curious to ask you, like, what could be like a first step to begin to honestly acknowledge our beauty, our handsomeness, our sensual self, which is what I feel that your students share in every feedback session, that you see
Yes.
like flowering, blooming,
Yes.
who they truly are.
Yes. Wow. I mean, I'm sure it's different for everyone, but I think being in a, whether it's in a relationship with one's partner or whether it's in a therapeutic relationship or a small group, like with the NSV, where it's a completely non-judgmental environment and it's a secure space for people to feel free to be able to be exposed in a way without without fear of being shamed or so to allow one's vulnerability to be exposed. And I kind of I always feel grateful when I think I must be honest, I think I have a little bit of a gift in terms of managing these 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 sessions, but in terms of allowing people to be seen and to express themselves and to be held in a way. So I think we all want to be seen and to be held, and a lot of this is going back to our baby infantile state. So um and just to maybe just I don't know about correct or just to amend something, you talked about the self being seen, but in a way, the self isn't a kind of we don't have like a true self which we just want to be revealed. Our self is always unfolding. And through, for example, the somatic work or through the movement lessons, it gives and through the discussion, etc., it gives an opportunity for the self to actually form in a sense. To so it's a dynamic, it's something dynamic, but in our human lives our preconceptual self is also, we're not born with a preconceptual self. Our preconceptual self is something that emerges during the first, let's say, 3, 6, 9 months of life, and that's the kernel, the core of it. But it's something that is always unfolding, even as adults. So but it is a matter of being able to get back into touch with something which is much more primordial than our kind of cognitive self. And as adults, we tend to emphasize our cognitive self as that's what's important, our decision-making self with autonomy and things like that. But in a way, the autonomy is premised on this more primordial self that doesn't have language. and is just yet a surging being. It doesn't yet have the kind of the the language that contains it.
Language that
Mm.
contains it. Yes, to become in touch with our preconceptual self, which is not a solid sense of self, but is a never, and it's an ever unfolding self. Almost
It's
it's
ever unfolding, and that's what's so fascinating about our human existence. We never ultimately know who we are, right?
yeah,
Um,
yeah, and that could sound scary, but it's actually relieving. And it's true
mhm,
because I am not the same Candia
mhm, mhm.
than when we started this episode. I have like 25,000 realizations already. And this is the Candia of this very moment. So in a way,
Yes.
we are legions. We are multitudes of
Hmm.
selves with within. And this like allows to let go of the neurotic holding on to and grasping to a fixed self, a fixed identity.
Yes.
Yeah, I am Mexican, I am woman, I am feminist and
Right.
patriarchy, and I have my goals and my mission and my vision, and I made these
Yes.
mistakes, but I am very responsible. And it's like, yes, but calm down.
And that's what the neurosis is fear of losing something
Yes,
essential.
fear.
And yet when you've developed your own self-confidence to trust yourself, to trust what is there, then you can let go of these fixed identities.
Yes, let go of fixed identities when you trust. And there's I don't remember the author, but he wrote a very famous book that is the Six Pillars of Self-Esteem. And I was very lucky to first borrow that book. I never gave it
Hmm.
back. And then I opened the book
Uh-huh.
and read just one paragraph that said that true self-esteem is how well you treat yourself and how respectful you are with yourself when things go wrong, especially when you fail,
Right.
when you're frustrated, when you
Hmm.
didn't do your best. And it's not like
Hmm.
like self-pampering. It's like more of like
Hmm.
it's very easy to feel good about yourself and and claim self-esteem and be
Hmm.
courageous
Hmm.
and confident when you are Messi after he won the Worldwide Cup.
Right.
But what it took real confidence and self-esteem was for Messi to keep on leading his team on after one of the horrible matches from the quarters of finals
Right.
where they lost and they were just about to be eliminated.
Yes.
Like when that's when we can talk about self-esteem.
Hmm.
And and the book is there. I said like I'm not gonna read it. Like
Yes.
I have the gold, and it's relieving. Like letting go of this fixation and what we talked about in the beginning, or what Moshe Feldenkrais view on health, that it's not about
Hmm.
being healthy, but about being having the ability
Hmm.
of resuming the motion of
Hmm.
what makes
Hmm.
you alive to keep on going
Yes.
and moving
Yes.
forward. And that loosens the grip of identifying with failure and identifying with the things that you don't like about yourself. And it also
Right.
allows
Right.
for some space for
Yes.
great things from you to come forth. It's almost
Yes.
like the foreground and background
Yes.
more fluid, more, yeah,
Yes. And another thing about going back to this the sense of body image in terms of foreground and background, body schema, etc., is the sense to the knowledge that ourselves extend beyond ourselves into the world. So the boundaries between the self and other are also more fluid in a way. And we didn't talk about time, but also
And we're running
there's
out
this
of time.
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 Time is such a big subject. I mean, it's such a big subject, and I don't think we have the time to go too much into it. But
How,
but this basic, in the same way that there's this distinction between the body schema and the body image, there's this distinction between time as duration, as like the pure experience of becoming, which cannot be measured, and then it can be measured, which is actually time in terms of space. And duration has nothing spatial about it. So
yes.
that's on one in a
And,
nutshell.
and that's very interesting because I have, I don't know, some conversations like this one feels like I have been talking like 2 minutes because time is flying, but at the same time it has like an infinite depth that is like
Yes,
we have covered things that I like are
yes,
timeless. And my question of time in regards
yes.
to the experience of the self and the body schema is how,
Hmm.
because time is connected to space, you mentioned, but we physically take space in our body. So how come it's not a subjective measure?
Well, it is a subjective measure in terms of duration. We
Okay.
all have our own experience of time, which we so for example, for you, this interview might feel very short. For me, time measured in terms of seconds or minutes. Um, but that's kind of like a philosophical question about what time is. Um, and what I've been trying to do in these sessions is to experience that distinction, but also to try and go into the experience of duration. And just to mention your the beginning question of from your session in terms of how does this relate to sensuality? Because that's what you want to you want to get back to that maybe, but the sensuality is in terms of time as duration, as like an endless languid, languorous kind of experience rather than like you know, like um and I had an interesting experience in the last NSV session. I'll just tell you we were exploring this, like trying to explore this distinction between time as duration and time as a spatial. And one of the participants who's she's really has this incredible gift for putting into language the experiences from the session. And she said, it was only at the end of this like movement lesson where I was exploring like the pelvic clock and the mechanical conception of time versus duration. She said, it's only right at the end I suddenly had this opening. I had this experience of this duration you were referring to. And I said to her, like one of the reasons was because when we were doing the pelvic clock, um, the participants' legs were bent, okay? But at the end of the session, when she had this experience of duration, I had asked everyone to extend their legs, okay? And it's only when your legs are extended, when you stretched out straight, that you can actually go into the body schema, because there's no compartmentalization of this part of the body versus that part of the body. It's all along a flowing line. And it's only when one is relaxed like that, and the tonus is relaxed, and allowing the body schema to emerge, that the experience of time as pure duration also emerge.
So it's easier to feel the body schema when all our limbs are extended, right? Almost as if we are a stick figure,
Yes.
5 lines.
Yes, or imagine you lying in water where you kind of being buoyed up by the water, so then your all your muscles can be relaxed.
Laying in water. The, I like to do that exploration, mm,
Mm-hmm.
beginning and at the end of a somatic movement practice, but I never imagined, I never worked with the image of doing it in water and being buoyed. But, and you know
Mm-hmm.
what comes to mind, that we are 72% water, and in a way we
Mm-hmm.
are always floating
Yes.
within ourselves. So what is fascinating to me is how the way we imagine and think and talk about ourselves influences the muscular tone and the
Mm.
experience of ourselves. So it's like this thing that we were talking about the beginning, that Moshe Feldenkrais work with the unconscious to support the conscious, like
Mm.
the intention and the like thinking and doing, like almost
Right.
almost as a synergy,
Mm-hmm.
as an
100%.
process.
And then it's a doing and the thinking. So it's you both both are can interrelate and need to interrelate.
Yes, and uh, mm, it's there's a lot of, out there about, yeah, change your mindset and then change your body and and lose weight or get
Uh-huh.
your feet or
Yes.
whatever. But what I personally have experienced in a very concrete and strong way is the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
When my body changes, then my thoughts about myself, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
when I do something, I become confident on my ability of doing that,
Mm-hmm.
and not the other
Yes.
way around. Like, yeah, I am sure that I
100%.
can climb the mountain. No, it's like I
Mm-hmm.
climb the mountain and then I am sure that I can climb. And of course, it
Yes.
self-suggestion and prepping yourself to that works. But what works for me the most, practicing in however I have understood this, Emile
Mm-hmm.
Coué's work on self-suggestion, is not only to think on what I want as a projection of the future,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but to actually think feelingly as a current experience in the moment. So it's not
Mm-hmm.
a mental projection of myself in the future outside,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but a simulation or a representation of myself in the present, though it's not yet real, but I am like
Yes.
picturing myself and doing my best to picture myself feelingly in that state. And then
You yeah. The other thing I wanted to add, and I've written about this with my friend, colleague Amy Schulman, who's also a Feldenkrais practitioner, but this the power is of imagination. That as if I'm extending my arm all the way up, or my arm is lifting up by itself, kind of thing. It's like this power of to imagine infinite possibilities creates the possibilities, creates the potential.
taking notes, imagining possibilities creates the potential.
Yes. So, for example, in the NSV on the body image, I was referring to this chap Ian Waterman, who's well known because he lost his tactile perception. So he lost his body schema essentially, and he taught himself to walk again and to function as a daily function through very, very intense uh intentional exercises. So, for example, if he closed his eyes, he couldn't stand, he would collapse because he needed to use his eyes to organize his musculature. But so there's this fascinating BBC documentary which documents his recovery or apparent recovery, and the interviewer or the researcher says, we did the fMRI, and we saw exactly mapped out what he was doing, but there was still an element that couldn't explain how he managed to recover his function. And he said, and the way he explained it was his power of his imagination, his ability to
Oh,
imagine himself doing these actions.
wow. I love this because we were talking about the foreground and the background and our
Uh-huh,
social media, Instagram, very cute and very handsome projected self, and also
uh-huh.
the felt
Yes.
sense of self in our body schema, like how we feel in our flesh, like yeah, our skeleton,
Mm-hmm.
our height, how do we feel in contact with the floor and etc. But this take things to the next level, like the the gold and the power in imagining yourself and setting the grounds of becoming almost as if
Uh-huh.
you become what you imagine to be in the
Yes.
in the exact moment when you get
Yes.
to imagine yourself.
Yes. And in a way, you're organizing your muscles to achieve what you want to achieve. But it is the power of the mind to create the reality, the future reality.
The future reality. And then it makes sense to see the Olympic gymnasts, like some of them moving with their limbs, but most of them, they are going through the
Mhm.
sequence that are like very
Right.
high level, complex, and really
Uh-huh.
dangerous things that they do in the Olympic gymnastics.
Hmm.
And very interesting how they are going through, they are imagining themselves
Yes.
in the act, so they are doing like a mental simulation. And at the same time,
Hmm.
now I realize that I also do that, but many times negatively, like I am
Hmm.
nervous, I am anxious, I am gonna
Hmm. Hmm.
mm, go to dinner with my beloved, and maybe there's gonna be some romance afterwards, or going on a first
Hmm.
date, or maybe dancing in the theater.
Hmm.
And now I realize how important is to not entertain negative images
Hmm.
about yourself. Because
Yes.
even if we like complaining about, I don't know, your nose is gonna make your attention
Hmm. Hmm.
focus on what you don't want, which is
Yes.
like almost in a subjective, intangible realm to be
Yes.
to embody that
Hmm.
which you don't want. So it becomes
Yes.
like a double-edged sword, like you where you point your intention and your awareness and try not to point it against you,
Hmm.
but doing,
Yes.
yeah, seeing yourself in a
Hmm.
benevolent way. So sensuality can emerge. So would you share with us a little tiny 2 minute movement practice, or a little tip or advice or something
Yeah.
to get in
That's
touch?
fine. I'm just wondering if I mean, you could do it, I guess, because we're sitting,
Yeah.
so then we should do it sitting. Although, I mean, imagine you may be like lying down on this, but for those people at home listening, you could lie down and um you could have your eyes closed. If your eyes are closed, you're going to go more into your own inner interoceptive self, but you could also equally have your eyes open and then you will maintain the contact with the environment. And just go into your breathing. Notice the rise and fall of your breath without judging. Notice where you feel the air coming in, and notice if it feels comfortable or uncomfortable. And if you feel any points of tension, notice where that tension is. And if so, just let it go and say, I see you, I welcome you, it's okay, and I'm okay. And if you're lying down, then I invite you to just notice the the weightedness of your head on the floor. If you're sitting up, you could notice how your head is aligned on your spine. And does it feel as if your head is kind of like suspended by itself if you're sitting? And can you just, if you close your eyes, can you try and sense what your body schema is? So which would be the the most simple experience of your anatomical self. Perhaps kind of like a stick figure. So if you're lying down, the line between the base of your spine and your pelvis, even if you're sitting, you can attend to that. And the line from your shoulder blade, your shoulder joint on your right side as your arm emerges down to the fingertips. And the line from your left shoulder through your left arm, forearm to your fingers. And similarly, the line from your right hip joint emerging from above the floor all the way to your right ankle and toes. And similarly, the line from your left leg emerging from your left hip joint. And I invite you to pay attention to the volume of the length of your spine. So not just the length, but the actual volume. Can you sense the volume of your spine? And imagine as if you are looking at yourself from behind you. Can you get a sense of your spine from behind? Can you get a sense of your spine from in front and from the sides? And in that way, can you get a whole sense of the three-dimensional volume of your spine? And you could imagine that your spine is full with a kind of a flowing water connecting your head and your to your pelvis and your legs. Okay, and then what I want to invite you to do is just sense if you can sense your body schema. Then very slowly you could start rolling your two arms on its axis outwards. So your palms are opening to the sides, and then really slowly rolling your arms on their axis inward. Taking a pause between the rolling to the outwards and rolling to the inwards, rolling really slowly as if your arms are lying in a barrel of treacle or a barrel of honey. And through this rolling movement, you might be able to start sensing the emergence of a body image on top of the body schema. So it's the changing tone of the muscles through the rolling that is creating a sense, a three-dimensional sense of your body image. And also invite you to pay attention to the experience of the time of this movement, of the duration of this movement, of the rotating of the arms on its axis. Does it feel like it's a single moment in time? Or does it feel that it's a number of separate individuated moments? And there's no right or wrong, it's just what is your experience? Okay, you can let that go and just sit as you are. You can open your eyes if your eyes are closed. And pay attention to your breathing now. Does your breathing feel any different? And does your sense of self feel any different?
Yes, I feel huge
Maybe.
like a dinosaur, a female dinosaur. Yeah, like wow, I'm sitting super straight, super proud, feeling super confident. I was slouched before and very rational, and I really feel like a dinosaur, like more animalistic. And it happened naturally. It's not like I'm gonna be upright because everyone's watching.
Uh-huh.
No, no, no. It's like, wow, this is super comfortable. And
Yes.
it was like, wow, I have a 3D spine. And I imagine
Uh-huh.
like when I started like picturing or doing the mental representation of my spine, my vertebrae, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my, I have huge vertebrae. Like I imagine each because I thought like, okay, the body of the vertebra and the spinous process and the transverse
Mm-hmm.
process. And then I was like, wow, I
Yes.
have very huge vertebrae, like the size of a grapefruit or a cantaloupe, like in total. And it's like, have you gone to the meat shop to the
Mm-hmm.
butcher and you buy some steaks and you see
Mm-hmm.
like the remains of the cow and like
Uh-huh.
cows have huge vertebrae. So I was like, wow,
Yes.
my vertebrae are huge. And then I was like, I am not fragile. and and my whole posture began to reorganize and I really began to feel like a diplodocus,
Mm-hmm.
huge dinosaur and
Right.
because of the skeleton
Yes.
and then with the arm circles
Yes.
that it was like oh but I am not only skeleton and bones, I am flesh and bones. And I started to feel like really feeling my body image, my 3D body image. And I am surprised
Yes.
because I have gone through this and I have like academically and theoretically studied the body schema and the body image and the five lines and the
Mm-hmm.
skeleton, whatever. But this is when I am
Yes.
embodying it and it feels so good. And I hope all the sensualists watching and hearing us also feel like
Yes.
very proud in their body. I, I don't know if I wish them to feel like dinosaurs because that can be kind of weird. But yeah, like
Yes.
it's like a juicy, sexy
Yes.
feeling and a natural confidence like yes this is me and
Yes.
and
Right.
you will never get enough of this more or less
Yes.
sensation so
Like what's called like vitality
yes
affect. It's you like
yes yes vitality
revitalizing.
and availability like yeah I am ready to do the dishes and clean and answer emails and i feel I feel I have an I as a self that is not a rational self, but a sensation of self
Mm,
that is
mm,
like a background for all of the rest of my multiple self.
yes.
Thank you,
Yes.
Hillel. Yeah, tell us.
It's a pleasure. So nice to talk to you, Candia,
Yeah,
to talk with you.
yeah. And you were saying,
I was going to say that your rational self is it's also a rational self. We have such a kind of a bias to say this is rational and this is irrational. But no, this is actually also your rational
Irrational.
self.
Yeah, yeah. We pretend to be rational. We are not. Yeah, and I am I am more befriended with my
Mhm.
unconscious self
Mm, wonderful.
and trusting all that in me that
Yes.
I am not aware of, but almost as if my unconscious self is conscious of me and
Hmm.
supporting me in my favor.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so
Oh,
much, Hillel. Great having you here
thank you.
at the
Thank
Sensual
you so much. It's
Podcast.
been it's a real pleasure.
Real pleasure. So tell us, how can we get in touch with you, learn more about your your sessions?
Okay, thank you so much. So the easiest is to go to my website, which is somaticwell.com.
Okay.
Um, and there's all the contact details, email, phone numbers if you want to send me a WhatsApp message or join the newsletter and send a message via the newsletter link. But somaticwell.com.
Somatic
It's somaticwell.com. Somaticwell.com.
Somatic Well, and your NSB sessions, are there something you teach regularly or just this couple
I
months?
teach I teach more, yeah, I teach these cycles. There are these 12-week sessions meeting fortnightly. It's about a 2-hour session, and we'll generally take a break over the summer, but then I'll restart in the spring. And but and I teach different themes, so they're always they're different themes. But yes, it is an ongoing and I'm happy to say a growing field.
A growing field.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here at the Sensual
Yes.
Sessions podcast, Hillel. Very
Thank you
happy.
so much, Candia.
My pleasure.
And we'll we'll be in touch. Take care. Bye bye.
Yeah, we'll be in touch. And also thank you, Sensualist, for being here,
Yeah.
watching, and joining this wonderful episode. So go to somaticwell.com and sign up for Hillel's newsletter so you know when the next NSB sessions are coming. These neurosomatic variation sessions are 12-week cycles where he's teaching very different topics. I actually got in touch with him because I was interested on the current NSB sessions that is about the experience of time and its duration, and it's fascinating. You should really join him. And as well, if you haven't already, go grab the free guide to awaken sensuality at my website, candiaraquel.com, which is my name. It's www.candiaraquel.com. Catch you next time, and until then, remember to take the time to sense your fire so you can share the flame.